Okay, so I've cut the stiles down to length. I've also identified which is going to be right, which is going to be left. So I fit this so it just fits on the inside, and there's no lateral movement here and here, and that's what I want. I've done the same with the other side. Now I want to make sure to not invert or change the orientation of these two now. So what I've done is I've marked off a little triangle shape that's missing some of the parts. So hopefully that will make sense. I'll know that these ones go in this orientation. I can't mix them up. What I am doing now is trying to identify, so that's right, this is left, and this is obviously not a real compass, but it could be, right? We're just trying to demonstrate what would happen in a solid wood construction environment. This is what this thing is. Alright, so now I need to do a little bit of layout for translating what has already been established here and knowing where to cut my mortises. And then after the mortises are done, then I go to cut down the rails to their final length and then get them to fit. So the marks that I've made here and here, the bottom line here is easy because that corresponds to the depth of the groove that we have down below. So from there, that is the location of where that groove is. And that's a good place to start when we start laying out joinery. The other line here is 3/4 of an inch down from this top edge. The reason that it needs to be 3/4 or thereabouts, again, it is going to be largely dependent on the size of your rails, but the 3/4 of an inch situation is critical not on the rail piece, but on the stile piece where the mortise is going to go. If we were to cut a tiny little section here that leaves nothing but short grain on the top, there's not a lot of strength in this door, right? Regardless of how well fitting our joinery is, this is going to become compromised. So what's done here is I understand the top and bottom dimensions, so I know the location of where my tenon and correspondingly where my mortise need to go. So I will translate those things down here and here just as a visual. I set up my square so that I could repeat these things fairly rapidly. And I always draw one full dimension here on the outside of the face. It kind of doesn't matter if the rest of them are drawn out or not, but I do need to understand or establish where these things go on all of them. Alright, so I've got that. This, I just carry this line over, that goes there. Alright, and then carry this line over to that one, this line over to this. And the fact that my square, the blade of my square does not extend all the way out to the opposite edge, or the opposite face of this doesn't really matter because all I care about is locating where the mortise goes in here. I don't need to draw it out on the face except for that first one that we talked about. I always like to start with that. Alright, now resetting my square for 3/4 of an inch. Alright, so that's where that one looks, or how that one looks. Not terribly concerned about super accuracy here, just because I will set up some stops when I cut these mortises. So I just like drawing these things in so I know exactly where all this stuff goes. Alright, so that's going to be the left, that's going to be the right, good. So in essence I've started with locating top and bottom of the mortise, which is great. Now I need to start to understand what the depth of this is going to be. So I don't really need this other board yet. The thing that I want to consider is that I have this groove, as you know, and oops, and that groove goes a ½ inch there. So any additional length that I create there is going to be additional strength. If this was a really wide piece, then I'd have to worry about limitation of the cutter length, but this is a really narrow frame, so I don't have to worry about that as much. What I will be thinking about though is how much material I have on the bottom of the mortise, and if I have a ½ inch, that brings me to there roughly. So from there to there, that's enough. That's good. I'm going to go with that. I've always heard that anything less than ¼ inch, ¼ inch of this material here is going to telegraph. Once you fit the tenon in there, all the glue, not all the glue, but the majority of the glue could be squeezed down into the bottom of this mortise. When it dries, it could telegraph on the outside edge here. It also is not a lot of great integrity as far as structure, but a ½ inch here gives me an overall tenon length, not including the haunch, of about 3/4 inch of length, which is plenty. So, alright, so that's what the mortises look like now that I have these things laid out, and they're all laid out on the top. Now I can go to the machine and start removing this material. And then after that's done, I'll be able to cut the rails down to final length, and then doing corresponding joinery after that. Okay, see you in a bit.